Cool. All right, let's begin. So we're going to start with our weekly check-in, and then we will move on to the content for today's lesson. So weekly check-in for today. Like I said, it's just a fun chance for us just to build some relationships in this class. So I'm happy for people to share whichever they want from that list. So there's what superpower would you want and why? What's your macro goal for this week? Or if there's anything else that you'd like to share or talk about, kind of like what's on top of your mind right now. So does anyone have anything that they would like to answer with that question? Superpower or otherwise?
Mind read.
What a mind read as your superpower. I've heard a lot of people want to be able to mind read as their power, but I feel like you would need to be able to turn that off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd just be too noisy in your head all the time.
Yeah.
And I think with mind reading, you need to be able to like look at someone and like zone in and just read their mind and not read everyone else's mind.
Everyone's mind.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you try and write down what it is.
So you gotta be careful with the superpower that you want, because sometimes it can get kind of overwhelming. I think a lot about that Superman like video or movie with Henry, what's his name, and how like he was like a Kryptonian or whatever you call him on Earth. And like how he was like overwhelmed by the amount of light and everything and sound and stuff because he's used to like Krypton. So I think about that as like you have to then learn how to control or feed out the noise or whatever. Yeah, you gotta be mindful about what superpower you want to pick. Anybody else?
I have like shape shifting. You can just shape shift into anything.
I heard that one too from another class. So with shape shifting, would it just be shape shifting into other people or just like people and animals?
People and animals, it'd be
and objects.
Yeah.
Like just living things or non-living things too?
Living things.
Imagine turning into a drawer.
What?
Guess what I'm gonna be today? A drawer. It reminds me of Harry Potter when he turned into the couch.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's also with Thor's enchantment on the tower. Back that off any object of my choosing. So like say sometimes the coffee you need to say, oh, a wallet, and then they couldn't put up your wallet.
I really like the, I think there's actually no new season for Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
And how like the rumors superpower is like she just compels people to do things with the, I heard a rumor. And then she makes them do whatever they want. She wants. Yeah. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know if it's a superpower, but I would want to be able to speak any language fluently.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like instantaneously, like you just can speak it. I don't know if it's necessarily a superpower, but I feel like it would be really useful. And like it would be a very subtle superpower.
It's not true.
Yeah,
like that.
Imagine
Anyway, these are the things that we can all dream about. Anything else? Shall we move on?
Teleportation.
Huh?
Teleportation.
Teleportation.
Teleportation, but also
Imagine teleporting into
Yeah.
someone.
You have to be careful not to like teleport into like the wrong spot though.
They have to be like really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you need to have seen the spot first before you teleport there?
Picture it.
That's
Yeah.
Imagine like you think of teleporting and you end up in like the wall.
Yeah.
Like you look at
That's what I'm saying. Like you need to maybe have been there before.
yeah, that's why balance for it's like okay, I can teleport when I have.
And I also like, would there be a limit to the distance you can teleport to?
Yeah, like,
You have to be to the place
Doesn't that be
you
so
before you
limited?
teleport.
Where can
but I thought you
teleport?
can just go anyway.
You can like have objects as well.
Oh, okay.
Totally
Yeah, like
opposite.
you touching it and
Yeah,
stuff.
Okay.
So like you have to touch the object to teleport with you.
Yeah.
You can't just be like
Physical
teleport
contact.
that to me.
Teleport that of stuff.
Yeah, by
Like,
itself.
to get something else.
Okay, so you teleport yourself to the other side of the room, then you hold onto the measuring cylinder and you teleport yourself back.
Why don't you do that?
Because I'm a teacher and I don't want to walk all that way.
Wow.
Alright. Anyway, I think that's a good conversation. Very random, which is what I enjoy. Alright. Shall we switch gears? Ready to do some learning? Alright, so just to recap, last week you guys did your organic chemistry test. I know you're probably going to nag me about the marking. I haven't done it, but I'm hoping to get it done soon. And what I will do is I'll plan a whole activity unpacking that organic chemistry test. What I normally do, and I want to kind of float this idea with you guys because I'm new to Edgewater and I'm not really sure what you guys prefer, and I know what worked at Selma, but I don't know what will work here, is what I've done in the past is a You Be the Marker activity. So what I do is I take exemplars from the class. You don't know whose is whose because I just put student 1, student 2, student 3. and I give you a copy of what they wrote with the marking schedule, and you have to mark it. So that's why I call it you be the marker. So you do that for me about 20 or so minutes, and then what I do is I upload the same work with my feedback. So one of the things you're going to see with these tests is that I'm going to be writing on them, and I'm going to be saying what you need to do as your next steps. And so that way you can see, did you mark the same way I marked? Because I want you guys to get in the head of an examiner. So it teaches you how to use the marking schedule. It teaches you how to assess your own ability, and also, like I said, what the examiner's thinking. And then after you had a chance to look at one of the questions on the exam, I then release the rest of the marking schedule, and you can look through the rest of, or I release the marking schedule and I release your practice exam. So I hold on to the practice exam initially because I want you guys just to investigate how the marking schedule works in just the sense of one question. And then you have the rest of the period to look at your own tests, look at the marking schedule, and I'm happy then to answer any questions as a class over some of the stuff that you might have struggled with. Does that sound like something you guys would be keen for me to do? As a means to kind of teach it? Okay, cool. I can organize that. That's fine. So we'll do that when I see you guys next, or hopefully I'll have all the tests marked by then. Cool. And then the other thing we did last week was we started our spec topic. This is our first internal. It's a really nice topic. It's very puzzle-like. So there's not a whole lot of things that you need to learn to be able to do it. It's mainly just being able to put things together. So for today's lesson, what I want to do is continue on the infrared spectra that we talked about on, I think, what was it, Friday or something, guys? And with that, I want us to learn how to start doing that justification. So I'll talk a little bit more about the internal. I'll talk about what you need to do at the achieve, merit, and excellence level. Obviously, you need to integrate all three spectras together, but I want to give you an idea of what's to come and what level of writing I'm expecting on this. It's really nice because it's actually not a whole lot. I want to see processing as the evidence. Right, and before we move on, we have our weekly Nakatogi. I think this one is a really lovely one to think about, especially with the changing of the timetable. I know it has been not an ideal thing happening, and I know it is a change in routine. But keep in mind that the school and everybody here, we're trying to adapt to an unknown situation, especially with COVID, and we're trying to do what we think is best to work for you guys. I think a lot about the teachers and how we're kind of like the cooks, and we're trying a lot of different things to make sure you guys have your successes and are able to reach your goals. And I know over this weekend, a lot of teachers were obviously making the new timetable for everybody. Us teachers were adjusting our kind of unit plans and what we had thought we were going to do for the next month around. So do take a moment to kind of acknowledge all that Mahi that your teachers have put in to try to support you and give it your all for your own learning. Remember, reciprocity is really important. So the teachers are giving a lot to try to get you guys to meet your goals, to get your UE, to get you into your different programs you want to do. And so you should return that Mahi just in the same. So really do some hard work, not only in the 4 condensed teaching days, but also on that Friday. So look at the schedule and pick what is worth coming to and what needs to be prioritized for you guys. With you guys, since we did an external topic, I'm not going to be calling people in for that. What I will be using that Friday for is our STEM Academy, and it's going to be focused on the healthcare pathways. So basically, Friday, my plan is to run kind of a tutorial to explain the different pathways that science can take you, how do you get into med school, that sort of stuff, and looking at entry requirements at university, just to give you guys an idea of what you need to focus on. So that's going to be the plan for at least the year 13s. So just FYI, I'll put something in the notices and I'll make sure mentor teachers know. So those that want to kind of look at those pathways have support doing those pathways. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So I totally forgot to print those matching cards, so I guess we're going to skip that activity because my brain just had a major part. That's okay. Do you guys... Well, here's the question. I can put the justification of the IR spectra a little bit later to give you some time just to process what we talked about in the last lesson. So there's Mahi Choice and there's Kahoot. We can switch things around. Because with the Mahi Choice, you can do actually most of it without the notes. So should we do Mahi Choice first? Because I totally forgot to print the matching cards now that I look at it. And I think I've also forgot to print out that worksheet for you guys. Because my brain has not run in all. I printed out one thing, I didn't print the other thing. It is online, is the good news. All right, I might print and run and get that because I think that's useful to see. But I am starting to try to give you guys homework. Toilet, yes. I am starting to give you guys directions with homework because I want to make sure you guys have a little bit more structure. The other thing is I'm printing out exam questions. And I want you guys to do one a week just to make sure that you guys are practicing it and you're getting feedback. So I'll pass this out. So this one we do on Wednesday next week. So you have heaps of time to give it a go. But I think you guys need a little bit more structure when it comes to chemistry. There's still the Mahi Choice there.
Yeah.
Using just the poetry and spread with very much ease, do the long
Alright, I'll put the Mahi Choice up.
something.
You guys can start with that because I've had a major brain fart today.
Bring it on Wednesday.
Yeah, because I want to collect that up so I can mark and give feedback.
Oh, cool.
All right. So since I have had a major brain fart and forgot to print things off for you guys, we'll start today with the Mahi Choice so that way you guys have a chance to practice some of the stuff we've talked about with IR. So there's level 1, level 2, and level 3. And there's lots of SciPad pages that you guys can work on as well as live worksheet and the ESA. If you need digital copies of anything, it is in the previous lesson number 1, just FYI. And I'll print out the IR Spectra worksheet because that one is the one that I've decided to be your homework. But I'll give you guys a couple minutes just to give that a go, and then I'll do some notes, and then we'll play Kahoot. So slight change in the plan because I forgot to print stuff off. This lesson or last lesson? Last lesson is on my website and it's recorded as well. All right, let's go, kiddos. I know, it's not that bad once you know what you're doing. Okay, so what I want to do is walk through a justification for just the IR spectra for today. Obviously, with this justification, it is just one of the 3 spectra that you need to write about and explain. But one of the other things I want to do is just outline the achieve, the merit, and the excellence requirements so you guys know what I'm expecting for each spectra and the level of detail. And also so you can see how freaking easy this internal is. So, first thing I want us to look at is just the assessment requirements, which is the checklist that I gave you. It's on the yellow piece of paper. I've double-sided it so it has both the checklist, the success criteria and the resource sheet so you guys can have it all in one place. The main thing that we're looking at here is the stuff on the bottom, which is what the achieved, merit, and excellence criteria are. The main thing that I want us to see with the achieved, and remember I'm putting achieved into red, is that I just need to be able to tell that you can pull information from the 3 spectras. You, in fact, do not need to figure out what the molecule is for an achieved, which is really good news if you're struggling with this material. So, if we see for the achieved, if we're looking at IR, it's determine the key peaks. When it and the function group for the CMMR, it's the number of unique carbon environments. The other thing for the achieved when it comes to the mass spec is you just figure out what the molecular ion is. That's it. So you're just identifying stuff off the structure for the achieved, which is the good news. For the merit level of this assessment, what I'm looking for is that you've met the achieve requirement. But for merit, there's some little extra things you need to do. For merit, I'm looking to see if you have all the relevant peaks. So making sure you have every single bit of detail when it comes to the IR. When it comes to the CMMR data that you look at, you need to, again, figure out the carbon environments, but I'm looking for linkage. So you should be able to link the CMMR data to the IR data and back each other up with it. And then for the mass spec, you should be able to figure out the molecule at this point. So when we go from achieve to merit, you should know what the molecule is. And with that molecule, you need to be able to justify and integrate all three spectra together and also talk about these things called fragments. So I'm not going to go into huge detail about what those things are because we will do that when we go to each spectra. I just want to point out to you the difference. There's a huge jump from achieve to merit then, and that's something that I want to point out and have you guys keep in mind, that an achieve level student, you just tell me what's there. A merit level student, you need to actually figure out what the molecule is and explain why. For the excellence then, some of the things you got to keep in mind is that the spectra data can fit for multiple molecules. And so what you need to be able to do at excellence is really show that process of elimination. So I'm looking to see, can you tell me what it's not, is the main thing for excellence to add on to the merit level thing. So in this case, justify the structure with all the compounds, full spectra, that's the stuff that you've seen earlier. But the other thing I need to see for excellence is elimination. So elimination of isomers that it can't be. Some of it you'll be able to do very obviously based off of just what's on the spectra. Other things you'll need to do in a little more detail, talking about fragmentation. There's going to be a couple where two options are possible, and the fragmentation will help you decide which one's which. So do kind of keep that in mind. And the other thing that I'm looking for the excellence is understanding the loss fragment and how that's uncharged, and that has to do with mass spec. So there's not a huge jump from the merit to excellence. The main jump is from achieve to merit. So if you're aiming for merit, I would say give the excellence a go. There's not too much extra that you need to do for that, which is very typical of a lot of chemistry exams. Are we okay with that so far? What questions do you have post kind of the overview? We're good? All right, so let me show you then that as an example with using the IR spectra. So with the, so I'm going to give you 3 spectra, and I will give it to you in this order because I think it's the most kind of helpful order. The first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to give you the IR spectra, and the reason why I give you the IR spectra is so that way you know function group. The second thing I'll then give you, and this is the second thing I'll teach you, is the CMMR data. That will give you information, hopefully, on the number of carbons that are in the molecule. And then the last one is mass spec. It's a good way to tie everything together and verify which isomer you have and things like that. So for the achieved, all I need you to do is identify the key factors on here. There's lots of different things you can identify to show me you understand how to read an IR spectra. First thing I always suggest you do whenever you're looking at IR spectra is go to 1500 and use that as a reference point, because we know that is where we're going to be making most of our observations. So I'm just going to draw this in actually a purple color. Actually, let's put it in a orange color just to help with that processing. So just keep a note that you want to look at 1500 as one of your first kind of reference points, and you're looking above 1500. The second thing that I would do as a reference point is check 1700, because that 1700 tells me about carbonyls. So that would be another thing that I would use on my map to help orientate myself. And the last thing I would use to orientate myself is the carbon-hydrogen peaks. Now remember, you are given this sheet as your resource sheet. So if you don't remember where your carbon-hydrogen peaks are, it's roughly between 2850 and 3100. So this here is my carbon hydrogen peak. Now I'm going to actually circle it and note it in red, because now I'm actually starting to hit those achieve requirements. I'm starting to identify what is there. So that is my carbon hydrogen peak. The other thing I need to start doing is try to see what other function groups that I can identify from there. One of the things I do look for is at 1700. I see a huge peak at 1700, and we know that that one is my carbonyl. So I'm going to label this one as something that I've identified as C double bond O. That is my carbonyl. And again, if we want to double check the range to make sure we're in the right range, I can look over here. I can see C double bond C double bond O, 16, 70, 70, 80, roughly that point. So now what I see here is this little double peak, and that double peak that I see is very common for primary nitrogens. So in this case, I know that this is my NH, and the other bit of information you can tell is that it's primary from that. So again, all I'm doing is doing identifications. If I want to verify that I'm correct, I look at my sheet here. I see nitrogen, hydrogen. I see it at 3,300 to 3,500, which is, roughly where I see this one too. All right. So an achieved level student, all I need you to do is identify stuff. Any of those things would be fine. So it's basically an or option for the achieved. You have identified one of these three things. I would tick it off that you know how to read an IR spectra. That's it for the achieved. Super easy, huh? All right. For getting towards the merit, that is, I need you to integrate all the relevant peaks so you can tell me what it is. So for these relevant peaks, you just need to annotate the spectra. You don't need to write me long essays. You just need to show me that you know what you're doing. So I know you guys immediately, some of you looked at it and goes, that is an amine. That is an amide and it is primary. So let's explain why that is. So from these three bits of information, I know I have a primary amide. And with that primary amide, I know that because there's a C double bond O at roughly 1700. And I have the NH at roughly, if I was looking down, that's 3,100 to about maybe 3,400. And since it has both of those functional groups, it must be an amide. The other thing that I can use as kind of integration is that I see a 2 trough or 2 peak. Or you can say a double. And that's why I know it's a primary. And you can use those 3 little dots as your therefore. So a merit level student is actually integrating in the information together to help prove it. The other thing a merit level student will do is integrate it with the other spectra. So you would be able to look at the CMMR spectra and verify what you see. If we were looking at mass spec and I wanted to verify, do you guys remember what I said you're looking for? For the mass spec, if I want to verify my amide, what's another way I could do that?
The molar mass?
Yeah, the molecular mass. So verified amide because the molecular mass on mass spec is odd. Odd number. So does that make sense for what I'm looking for? So, and you can see what I'm saying. It's a huge jump from achieve to merit because an achieve level student just circles it and tells me what's there, but a merit level student will actually explain. Are we good so far? All right. Shall I go up to the excellence? We good? Yeah. All right. The excellence level student is able to tell me what it's not and why. So there's several obvious things that you can tell me what it's not and why. The first one that I want to eliminate out is that carboxylic acid, because we're very mindful that the carbonyl and this peak here could be carboxylic acid. But I know it's not because I see how this hasn't blended in with the CH. So I could say, for example, for excellence, even though It has a peak at around 3,000 and the C double bond O peak. It's not a carboxylic acid because it hasn't blended. Yeah. Does that make sense to how I'm thinking about it? Like, I'm sorry, it's a little bit messy, but that's how I'm happy for you guys to write, is to annotate on it. So you notice how it's not blending together. That's the way I like to describe it. If you looked at the notes from the other day, which I'm trying to grab, so you guys can see an alcohol, carboxylic acid. You see how in a carboxylic acid, the OH gets blended into the CH.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, we see it as two distinct peaks. And that's how I can justify that I know it's not a carboxylic acid. Are we good so far with that? Right, other things you can do for excellence to tell me what it's not is that you know it's not an amine because the carbonyl is present. You can say, I know it's not a ketone or an aldehyde because the amine's present. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, what was I going to say? Not amine because C double bond O is present. Not ketone or aldehyde because the NH is present. And we notice that the carbonyl is a little bit wider as well. Wider, typical in amides. I'll move that over. Don't worry, I will scan and put everything online. I just want to show you guys the difference between achieve, merit, and excellence for this IR spectra. So like I said, achieve, very, very easy. Tell me what's there. Merit, a little bit harder. You got to explain why, how you've combined all this information. Excellence, I need to see that you're telling me what it's not. That's not bad. Yeah. So for the internal, I still need to figure that out because I need to double check what the assessment criteria is. What I think I will do is I will give you 2 molecules to solve. And so long as you get one of them at the level, then that's going to be the grade overall. So I think that would be relatively fair. And the other thing is I will give you practice one as well. So I'm going to figure out how I organize it, and like if there's a way I can like give you one, and if you pass it, then I can give you, then you can be done, or if you need both. So I'm going to have a tinker with how I organize it, so that way it's a little bit more forgiving. But yeah, that's what that is. Sorry we ran out of time for the Kahoot, but we can always play the Kahoot hopefully in our next lesson if we have some time. So just to summarize what you guys were looking at, be able to start justifying it. Homework is going to be some SciPad pages, which is announced on the classroom for lesson number 1, and then for lesson number 2, I want you guys to do that IR justification worksheet, and make sure you are also doing that practice exam question because you guys need to get going on your organic chemistry.